I now give the floor to Mr. Jonathan Granoff, President of the Global Security Institute, on behalf of Unfold Zero.
Thank you, Mr. President, Your Excellencies, friends. Senator Alan Cranston often said, "Nuclear weapons are unworthy of civilization." If we contemplate the consequences of the explosion on a civilian population of any of the present 16,300 of these devices of death, the inferno, the radiation, the destruction in proportions far beyond human reckoning, our sense of conscience, our sense of common humanity must compel us to act. Silence, equivocation, or procrastination in the face of this threat that is recreated every day, every moment, is complicity. Nuclear weapons are immoral, and therefore we must work to eliminate them. Mr. President, the convening of this high-level meeting is thus praiseworthy, and it is an honor to speak here today. Promises to seek the security of a nuclear weapons-free world abound. The unanimous decision of the International Court of Justice underlined that duty and declared it universal. Elementary considerations of humanity and conscience embodied in international humanitarian law highlight the prohibition of all weapons of indiscriminate effect. By international treaties, biological and chemical weapons are banned. But imagine if the Biological Weapons Convention said, no state can use smallpox or polio as a weapon, but we will entrust 9 states to modernize the delivery, accuracy, and stockpiling of the plague as a weapon to pursue international order and security. Would that be coherent, equitable, sustainable, and wise? Inequity and incoherence bring instability, and coherence and equity bring stability. The resolution convening us today properly calls for the urgent commencement of negotiations in the Conference on Disarmament to obtain a comprehensive convention eliminating nuclear weapons. But this process need not be limited to only one forum. The issue is indeed sufficiently critical that many forums, bilateral, multilateral, regional, and global, at diplomatic, military, ministerial, high-level, and summit level, should be devoting time, resources, and skills to moving forward. Also, discussions should include other forms of moving forward, such as a framework of instruments or a ban. The valuable summits addressing the security of nuclear materials could also include, in its agenda, acceleration of the elimination of nuclear weapons, or a series of summits on this urgent matter at the same level could be commenced. Our real security interests are a stable climate, control of pandemic diseases, cybersecurity, building stable societies where human dignity flourishes, stable financial markets, elimination of poverty, healthy rainforests and oceans. These are the real security issues we face. Achieving success in these issues is our common good. Recently, we have seen increased appropriate attention to the climate. Failure on this issue is slow burn, slow death. Nuclear weapons, fast burn, fast death. To adequately address the climate and other threats, mature leadership that creates cooperation is needed. With respect to the climate, there can be no them. We share the same air. There is just us. Nuclear weapons are not only dangerous and costly, but they are a wall where we need bridges. It is time to tear down this wall. Which nation, which leader will step forward, redefine security, pursue our common good, and move the nuclear disarmament negotiation process with appropriate speed? Many believe it is in God's hands. I agree. But it is also in our hands. Thank you.
I thank Mr. Granoff for his statement. I now give the floor to Mr. Tim Wright on behalf of International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, ICAN.
Thank you, Mr. President. A world bristling with nuclear arms can never be a world in which all nations are united. These instruments of terror are the ultimate markers of disunity and disharmony among states. They threaten all that the United Nations strives to achieve. The creation of this UN International Day for the total elimination of nuclear weapons is thus well justified. But it is not an end in itself. Rather, it is an urgent call to action. For 18 years, the Conference on Disarmament has lain stagnant, tarnishing the reputation of the UN, squandering vast diplomatic resources. Its continued paralysis, of course, serves well the interests of those few states that care little for nuclear disarmament. Today, all 9 nuclear-armed states are bolstering their nuclear forces with plans to retain them for decades to come. Many of their allies, too, are complicit in reckless, unsanctionable preparations for nuclear war. The action plan agreed at the Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference in 2010 remains largely unfulfilled. It is almost as if the nuclear weapon states believe that the treaty entitles them to possess nuclear weapons forevermore. As the Marshall Islands has argued in proceedings before the International Court of Justice, this is plainly untrue. Given the dire state of play, one might be inclined to despair. But to despair is a recipe for further inaction, and inaction a recipe for catastrophe of unprecedented proportions. Instead, we must chart a new course. Rather than waiting in vain for leadership by the nuclear-armed states, the rest of the world must embark now on negotiations to prohibit nuclear weapons categorically. Why, after all, should the most destructive weapons be the only weapons of mass destruction not banned? And what could justify further delaying rectification of this absurd and dangerous anomaly of international law? We must not hold back in hopes that the nuclear-armed states might suddenly make good on their decades-old promise to disarm. Like would-be proliferators, they perceive a self-interest in possessing the bomb. They believe misguidedly that it affords them prestige in international affairs. By banning nuclear weapons, we can alter that perception. We can translate into law the tenet propounded by Secretary General Ban that there are no right hands for wrong weapons. Through its normative force, a ban treaty would profoundly affect the behaviour even of states that refuse to join. The public, the media, parliamentarians and mayors would have a powerful new tool with which to challenge the possession of nuclear weapons by their governments. The ban would compel allies of nuclear-armed states to end the practice of hosting nuclear weapons on their soil and to reject the pretense of protection from a nuclear umbrella. And it would oblige all states to divest from companies that manufacture nuclear arms. We do not pretend that a ban treaty is a panacea. It will not magically transport us to some form of security nirvana. But we are convinced that this is the next necessary step on the path to a nuclear weapon-free world. More than any other proposal on the table, it has real potential to break through the seemingly impenetrable logjam, for its success depends not on the goodwill of the nuclear-armed, but on the collective resolve of the nuclear-free. The forthcoming Vienna Conference on the humanitarian impact of nuclear weapons, to be hosted by Austria this December, is a prime opportunity to advance our goal. The international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons urges all states to express their readiness and determination to start negotiations on a ban in time for the 70th anniversaries of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Together, let us stigmatize, ban, and eliminate nuclear weapons before they abolish us. Thank you.
I thank Mr. Wright for his statement. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, delegates, we have heard the last speaker on our list. I would like to express my appreciation to all participants for their invaluable insights and contribution to today's informal meeting to commemorate the International Day for the Total Elimination of Nuclear Weapons. The informal meeting of the plenary is now concluded. The meeting is adjourned.